Hello, I'm John Grom, and welcome to our 115th Right and Left Discussion Forum. We hold our televised discussions twice monthly to demonstrate the value of civil, productive, open-minded political dialogue. Of course, we do not always agree. In fact, we seldom agree, but that's what makes our discussions productive. Today, our panel will discuss the Ethics in Government Act, which gives the Attorney General the authority to appoint an independent counsel to investigate suspected wrongdoing on the part of senior public officials. This position has also been known at various times as the special counsel or the special prosecutor. The people that have been investigated by these special prosecutors had other names for them, particularly Ken Starr. Today's panel, beginning on my left, is Bryan Laubaugh, president of R&B Financial Services. On his left is Patty Haskins, member of the Wadsworth City Council. On her left is Dr. Ronald Chamberlin, retired senior research chemist. Bryan, given that 23 special prosecutors or independent counsels have been appointed since the Watergate era, and 18 times the result has been no indictment, and of those public officials who have been indicted, all have been either acquitted or pardoned. Do you think the taxpayers' money has been well spent on these investigations?
You know, on its face, you'd have to say no. When you look at just the cost and the benefit, I've struggled with this because over the years, it seems to me that the special counsel has been used to vex who's ever in power. So when Ronald Reagan, if you remember, I'm sure you remember the Iran-Contra with Oliver North and files being taken out of his office by his secretary or his assistant. I can't remember what her name was off the top of my head, but she was prominent. And that went on for some time. You know, I just think this whole process we need to look at because it seems to have gotten out of control. We're in the midst of one right now. I mean, you can't, get on social media or pick up a paper or definitely watch CNN. They've got the drumbeat. It's almost a daily drip of information that's been leaked coming from the special counsel, and it gets everybody up in an uproar. And then you find out at the end of the day that someone read an email wrong, the date was wrong, and or someone misunderstood what the confidential source was saying about the the investigation. The latest is that word is that the special counsel is going to interview the president, and everybody's just can't wait for that to happen because they're certain they're going to get him on this. So I think I would probably lean towards just getting rid of this. There's got to be something else that we can do that's a little more productive and that doesn't run into the tens of millions of dollars, and then at the end of the day
nothing happens.
One of the interesting things that I found out, Senator Al Franken resigned, and he threw himself on the ethics committee. And when you start looking at the ethics committee, that's another one of those another one of those subcommittees that takes them forever to render a decision, and the investigative process and it goes along with that. So there has to be a better way, and I just think we've come to the point where special counsels have been used just to sort of
get revenge.
Use a ball bat against whoever the president is, and I really believe we should probably bring it to a close.
Patty, do you agree?
Yes and no. I think on its face value it does look like it's been overused, and we are spending a great deal of money. The problem is whether a person believes it's good or bad tends to appear to be when your party's in power. I mean, originally the Republicans were up in arms about the fact that there were special counsels and independent counsels, and they had all kinds of problems with it, of course, until Bill Clinton came into office. Then, okay, let's vex our power now, and we'll bring Ken Starr in and see what he can do. Now, of course, it's Robert Mueller who's attacking the Republican side, and therefore they think that it's outrageous. Of course, at the same time, they're calling for special counsels to investigate Hillary Clinton. So, I mean, how can the one be okay? The advantage to it, I think, is the idea is that it is to be able to investigate those higher powers within the government that are not going to be able to be held accountable for misdeeds unless you go to this independent counsel who is supposedly not political. Now, to have anybody on I hear all these things about Mueller had this guy on there that contributed to this person or whatever. You're not going to find anybody that's totally unbiased. And you have the right to donate to parties. What you want to find, though, is someone that can act fairly and put their biases aside. And I think Mueller has acted properly in case of that one gentleman, Peter Stroke, whatever his name was, when they discovered that he had published emails that were definitely anti-Trump, he removed him immediately from the investigation. So he's tried to, look at this honestly. I don't know. I think that we need to have these types of investigations so that we can look into these situations. Bryan mentioned, the president's going to be interviewed. That doesn't have to be done publicly. That can be done privately. I think that's all appropriate. It has actually produced results. We have Papadopoulos, who pled guilty. We have Michael Flynn, who has pled guilty. Paul Manafort has not pled guilty, but he has numerous charges out there, some of which so there have been some results as far as this particular investigation has gone. One of the big concerns I know people have with special counsel is that a lot of times what they initially investigate does not end up being what they charge them with. I mean, even if you look at Bill Clinton, the original purpose of the special counsel was to investigate Whitewater and the land dealings in Arkansas. But then he is impeached based upon completely different information. So, there's concern when that goes astray from the original idea, but only if it's your party, it seems. People are only concerned when it's them. I think you need to understand that the independent counsel can end up anywhere on this type of thing. So those are just some of my...
Do you think that perhaps it serves as a deterrent, a high public official knowing I might, there is that ability out there to take me to task?
Right, and I think there needs to be something. Now, perhaps this could be tweaked, could be changed, come out, and they have made changes in this ruling. And there were other things that were involved in the, I can't remember the name of the exact act, the
Ethics
and Government
Act.
Act. That also dealt with financial disclosures, brought that about, that all of your officials have to provide documented evidence of where their finances are and so forth. It talked about also their earned income, what they can earn, and that's actually been interesting in the complaints about it. You could make money off of investments and so forth and so on, but you couldn't have a job such, which was like earned income, beyond whatever your salary was. I think anything over $125,000, you could not have earned income beyond that. And that's actually been raised about Donald Trump, in as much as he put all of his business in his son's name. He's not really divesting himself of his business. So, and there was also originally, I believe, limitations placed upon when you could lobby after you got out of your position. So
embracing that revolving door.
I think that the whole idea of a blind trust is just something to mollify the voters. It's a farce.
A blind trust can be done correctly, but it can be fudged. Well, at least we're seeing that it can be fudged.
Yeah, Ron, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm just amazed you might think a politician would be vindictive toward each other in this way.
Yes, isn't that awful? So.
Yeah, right.
Well, again, good and bad, I think. I think it's a little bit like the grand jury system in a way. You investigate something and see if there's room enough there for an indictment, and then you bring it through to further legal means if there is, if there isn't. And I don't know how many grand juries beat with no progress whatsoever. But if they can ferret out something that really needs to be exposed, I think that's good to do. And is it a waste of money? Well, sure, sometimes. I'll bet. If it goes on and nothing really happens of it, it's not necessarily wrong to pardon or someone who's been indicted, depending on what the circumstances are. So I can see reasons for and against it. I think there's a great potential for abuse there. I like your quote you gave from Justice Scalia. He said, there's no. It's perception is everything. There's no more powerful way than one politician to say you may well be a crook, whether you are or not. Particularly these days with social media, all you have to do is put something out there and
you're a crook.
If it feels like the truth, it's the truth.
Yeah.
If it feels like it.
It feels like the truth. Yeah, it feels like it.
If it feels like it's true to you, then it must be true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially if you think you're supposed to believe it.
And you're supposed to believe it. Yeah.
The alternatives that we have, and I know some people are saying we have intelligence committees in the House and the Senate that can handle it. Our political system and our Congress is so politicized right now that they can't work together. I mean, you look at the Intelligence Committee in the House with Devin Nunes taking information directly from the committee and running over and telling Trump in the White House what's going on. That's really not partial. And because we are at this heightened level of non-bipartisanship and
animosity,
animosity where when all the votes are by party line in these committees.
Pretty much, yeah.
And I guess it's okay if your party's the one in power. You think that's fine, but when your party's not in power, then you have a problem. But the fact that they're not working together, I don't think that is a viable option to get rid of the special counsel and expect these committees to come up with a unbiased opinion and just a statement of facts that they should.
Yeah, there's no such thing in the world as an unbiased opinion.
No, there isn't. But those committees,
especially in politics,
those committees have worked much better in the past. I mean, when Clinton, there were Democrats violently opposed to Bill Clinton and all of these things. I mean, that's how it got to impeachment. His party didn't come around and say, we're going to protect him, Democrat, no matter what.
Yeah.
And
the Republicans didn't do that with Nixon either.
Right, they came out
particularly Goldwater said, "Go, leave town."
Absolutely, absolutely. But we're just not seeing that anymore. And for that reason alone, I think we almost need.
Well, what about the reach of the special prosecutor? When the first Ethics in Government Act was passed in 1978, it stated, in essence, that the special prosecutor can investigate allegations of any misconduct by any government official with unlimited budget, no deadline, and could be dismissed only by the Attorney General for good cause.
Now, and that's been modified a bit, though. Yes.
It's been changed 5 times.
Yeah.
So I'm saying this was the first time around, but still in all, the reach is pretty strong. In my opening statement, I commented that there had been 22 special prosecutors, 18 no indictments, and that there had everybody who had been indicted had been either acquitted or were later pardoned. However, in the Whitewater case, there were 15 partners in the old Clinton law firm that were indicted.
Right.
And I don't know if they were found guilty or not, but I'm thinking about these poor partners in that law firm that would have gotten away with whatever it was they did had it not been for an ex-partner being elected, or the wife of a president being in the White House. But these 15 people had nothing to do with government. They did have to do with some cheating on some land deals. But boy, that reaches pretty far. And you mentioned the Ken Starr. He had finally found enough information to encourage the Senate to impeach Bill Clinton on the case of Monica Lewinsky, whom he had not even met yet when the investigation started.
I thought the impeachment was based upon his lying under oath.
On lying under oath,
yes.
Yeah.
but it had to do with Monica Lewinsky. Well,
Right.
actually, it had to do with,
I thought it was one of his trials that he had with one of the other females.
yeah, I can't remember her
I
name.
can't remember which one.
Yeah.
There were numerous,
Well, they were called
unfortunately.
bimbo eruptions. Or
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't
whatever.
use that term, but yeah.
But you agree that there is a deterrent effect by having the potential for
Whether it's effective or not, I don't know that I don't know how far we have to go back so that we can at least begin to be a little more unbiased and apolitical in these particular things. When you break the law, it shouldn't make any difference if you're a Republican, Democrat, or Bernie Sanders' wife. You know, the fact of the matter is you broke the law, and that needs to be an equal application of it. Whether you're a politician or a billionaire or the wife of somebody, or the wife of the president or whatever, and I think that's what's disturbing at times, is that it takes a special prosecutor to spend tens of millions of dollars to ferret out these particular issues when the law that's in place would certainly cover that. I'm sure there were plenty of laws and rules and regulations in place when Bill Clinton was doing the things that he was doing. You know, it was clearly wrong what he was doing. There wasn't anything. No one ever argued that there wasn't a law in place or there wasn't an understanding as far as how you're supposed to behave in office. It just seems that these behaviors that we keep seeing continue to get more and more just unseemly, and so you end up having to have somebody because you can't really, you don't have the necessary firepower to take care of it. I just think we need to go back and we need to start saying, hey, stop this with, well, you started it with this person, and so we're going to get back at you with that person, and now we're going to do this, and that's what's happening now,
And we're seeing it in spades.
the two extremes, and we've talked about this before, the two extremes of the right and the left have basically taken over. And the extreme on the left side has taken over, and the extreme on the right, they're both wrong as far as I'm concerned. We're not governing from the middle anymore.
I think in this,
we got to start. We got to start somewhere.
I'm not sure a prosecutor would have been required had there been some acceptance on the president's part of the fact that there was interference in our election by the Russians. I mean, I think that is very clear. Now, that does not necessarily mean that Mr. Trump did anything wrong. The Russians could have decided, we want to help him without him even realizing it. I mean, I'm just saying that's possible. Nothing's been proven otherwise.
sort of like we do all over the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
But the fact that they are being involved in the election is something that needed to be investigated. And had that been taken seriously and investigated from the start by this administration, I think that perhaps the special prosecutor would not have been needed. It was when there was no interest in even saying that the Russians were involved and that this special prosecutor came about. And then, he tried to influence the Attorney General, which caused, and of course, Jeff Sessions probably needed to recuse himself anyway, being a part
The
of
only thing he's done right so far.
Right, which, it's coming out now that was, he was strongly urged not to, and Trump was very disturbed with him for having recused himself, because it is the Attorney General that has that power to remove the special prosecutor. President Trump can't just say you're gone. There's no way that he can. I have a question. Can a president pardon himself? I heard this discussed at the very beginning of the probe, and he was under the impression, I think, that he could, and he was checking with his lawyers, and I heard various commentators say yes and no. Have you heard anything about that?
No, but that would certainly set social media on fire, wouldn't it, if he did?
Yeah. I think isn't it Alan Dershowitz? He had some sort of commentary online as far as the president as it relates to the different laws and special prosecutors and all that kind of stuff. And it's almost as if the president is insulated from a lot of this stuff, and it will take an act of Congress, just like they did with Bill Clinton, to impeach him. You know, I guess the problems that I see that are just sort of bubbling up now are some of the same problems with Iran-Contra. Remember when they went after Ollie North and all that kind of stuff?
And nobody got indicted.
Right.
Unfortunately, and that was nasty.
And
in my opinion, Ollie North was truly a traitor. And
well,
but he wound up being a senator.
We start these on this path, but all of a sudden we end up way over here, and it's like we haven't answered this over here. I find it kind of interesting that you know the Russians were our friends. The Russians were our friends for 8 years, and that hot mic moment that Mr. Obama leaned over to then president of the USSR and said, "Let Mr. Putin know basically that after the election I'm going to have a lot more flexibility," and all the pictures that you see of Hillary Clinton and all the Russians and the
red button,
how much the $500 million that they gave the Clinton Foundation and another $20 million for Bill Clinton to come over to Russia and speak to their large group of oil industry executives, and everybody looks at that and goes, "Oh, geez, that can't be a conflict of interest." That and all of a sudden now, we got Mr. Trump who's done some pretty stupid things. All of a sudden now, those daggone Russians are messing around with our election when, like you said, we do this all the time. All you have to do is. In the
case of Vietnam, we even had him assassinated.
Look at Iran. Iran is blaming their problems on us now.
Well, of course.
Sure, and you expect that. Venezuela, same thing. It's those Americans are interfering in our government. So
I think that before we end this discussion, we have to go back to Ron suggested the Anton Scalia's quote, and I would like to read it. It said that he was the lone dissenter in a case, but he worried that an overzealous, unaccountable, independent counsel could pick his or her targets and then prosecute them for even the most minor or technical offenses. Nothing is so politically effective, he wrote, as the ability to charge that one's opponent and his associates are not merely wrong-headed, naive, and ineffective, but in all probability crooks. And sometimes the charge is all that it takes to destroy a career.
Sure. Well, look at the present Me Too thing. Not everybody who's been accused and got out of the way is equally culpable here. I'm quite sure. And if there were any kind of really legal approach to this, some people would be found, okay, we can exonerate that. That was innocent, or this was not. I'm not sure. Everybody's being tarred with the same brush here. And I think that can happen in that case too, but
Except
not necessarily.
President Trump, who was accused and it's been ignored.
Right.
So.
I think that in the Iran-Contra affair, it got so darn complicated that the public gave up on it. So the politicians did too. But I mean, look what happened. There were 7 Americans being held hostage in Lebanon by Hezbollah. We were going to have a deal where Israel, believe it or not, would send arms to Iran. Iran would send money to the United States that they would use to get the hostages out of Lebanon. However, it got more complicated while Ollie North got involved. because
Contras got
all
right.
of a sudden we had these Contra rebels in Nicaragua that needed help. So the money was diverted then to support the anti-Noriega rebels I mean, it got so convoluted that what I just told you I had to look up 2 days ago because I could not remember. All I could remember about that whole case was Reagan going, boy, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
and,
Well, you could call it,
George H.W.
it sounds kind of similar to what we had just happen, what, a year and a half ago when a plane load of cash, I mean, actual hard dollars, was delivered to Iran, and the backpedaling now that Ben Rhodes and the Obama administration is doing to try to justify, you know, that, well, I think it was a $400 million.
But it was their money.
Yeah, I was going to just say, it was
their
their money that we
Okay.
had frozen,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
unfroze. It wasn't
but-
like we took our money and
Yeah,
gave it
but
to
the
them.
fact of the matter is, who sends over pallets of cash? Why don't you just flip the switch at the Fed and say, your current account has now $400 million more? What's the purpose of that? To me, that's the smoking gun, is like, why would you send a plane load of cash, $400 million?
And-
how does that, okay, it's your money. You get to decide if you want it in 20s or 50s or hundreds, and I'd like to have 12 pallets of cash. No, the federal government says, okay, we owe you this money, it's your money. They flip the switch, and all of a sudden you can
I
get to your
don't know
money.
why they did that, but I
You
don't
see,
know
but
what
see, that's the
red
point, though.
flags that raises.
I guess that's my point. A special prosecutor could look into that and say, what was the purpose? You know, what was the purpose of that? Why would you do it that way, outside the normal course, when the standard operating procedure would be, we'll send you the money. It's a debit and credit, you know, journal entry. You got $400 million. There you go.
There had to be some sort of perceived advantage for showing that, for demonstrating that to the public. I don't know what it is,
Yeah, but they didn't want to show it.
I don't
Sorry.
think they did.
It all happened on a runway at the same
Yeah.
time as the changes.
Right.
Anyway, thank you very much. Our time is up, and we will meet again in about 2 weeks.
Very good.
Yeah.